Have you got any more or less confident about England's chances in the second test over the last few days?
I would have gone with an unchanged team, but Wood's clearly not fit.
There's unbelievable amounts of pressure on someone like Zach Crawley going into this game.
So I'm worried about Joe on this tour. He hasn't had a lot of cricket. He hasn't had felt bat on ball.
Adelaide don't want this test match to be pink ball. Brisbane have been lumped with it. I don't think we should have it in the Ashes.
Stokes' captaincy is very strong. His bowling's been fantastic recently. I'm not sure I've ever felt less confident in his batting.
He spends so little time actually playing cricket now. The only matches he plays these days are test matches for England.
Hi, Stuart Broad here. I'm here with Laithwaite's Wine, the proud sponsor of the Telegraph's cricket podcast. Check out my Beyond the Wicket range of wines at Laithwaite's, inspired by my memories travelling the world playing this incredible sport we love. Visit laithwaites.co.uk for more details.
Hello and welcome back to the Telegraph Cricket Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Goodwill, and I'm joined by our Chief Cricket Correspondent, Nick Holt.
Evening, Jake. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. And we are also joined by our Cricket News Correspondent, Will McPherson.
Evening, Jake.
Right, well, it has been a long old gap since the first test ended. So my first question to you both is, how have you been spending your time?
Well, we've been working very, very hard, obviously. But aside from that, we've taken in some sights of Perth and Brisbane. I think both of us hadn't been to either of these cities for 8 years because England didn't come to Perth on the last Ashes tour and we didn't come to Brisbane because of some of the more draconian lockdown rules there. So we've been exploring these two cities. They're I don't know in the Ashes power rankings of Australian cities where these two sit, but I'm not sure they're on the podium necessarily. But there's still some delights to be had. So we've had a nice time. We've filled our time. Don't worry.
And it's been a long gap. I've never known anything like it on tour. Actually, it seems to me that time has stood still a little bit really since the Test match ended. I think it must be hard for the team actually to sort of shut all the noise out and try and move on from the last Test match when they've had so little to do. And obviously that's partly their own choice because they didn't go and play in the Canberra warm-up. But yeah, it's been a very odd sort of week. We had something similar actually on the India tour a couple of years ago, and I remember then going up to see the Golden Temple in Amritsar, so it was quite nice to have a break, but not quite found anything like that in Australia to do.
And does it feel like the Ashes is still very much front page news down under? Will, is it still what everyone's talking about, or is everyone kind of slightly switched off from it with such a long break?
No, I think there's been just enough to keep the pot boiling in the Ashes news cycle. There's always scope for a bit of pommy bashing, and also Australia have had a few kind of issues of their own with. A bit of uncertainty about the team they'll pick this week, who's fit, who's not, whether they need a spinner. Usman Khawaja seems to be a bit of an issue at the moment. I watched him net for a bit today, but he also had some choice words to say about the Perth pitch, which I think just about everyone else thought was excellent, but he didn't enjoy it at all. So yeah, there's been enough to keep it busy. After Nick's picture made it onto the front page of a West Australian at the start of the tour, there's a picture of both of us on the back page of the Australian today. So there's also Joe Root in that picture. So I'm not sure we were the subject of the photo necessarily. We're not the protagonist, but yeah, there's been a pretty constant Ashes news cycle going on, which is good to see.
Well, yep, good to see the Holt and McPherson vanity project continuing. Right. Let's get into this second Ashes test and see if England will turn it around. Okay, guys, well, I am feeling slightly more positive about this second test than I was a few days ago. I don't know if that's just my mind trying to rationalise things, but the thing I keep coming back to is fundamentally this isn't the strongest Australian team, albeit a good one. Nick, have you got any more or less confident about England's chances in the second test over the last few days?
Yeah, like you actually, more confident. I think in the aftermath of Perth, you just thought, here we go, we're on a similar path to where we've been before. And that will be the case as they lose this game. But I think arriving in Brisbane, realising that that it was just one man had a great day out. Travis Head played brilliantly, one of the best Ashes innings I've ever seen, and England had one bad session. That's how you kind of rationalise it and think that maybe they've got a chance here, and they have. I mean, Jofra Archer under the lights could be a match winner. It's just whether they can put enough runs on the board, whether they can adapt to the bounce. If there is some, the bounce won't be as extravagant here as it was in Perth. And I often look back at that and think, well, that bounce has done a lot of England teams over the years, over the decades. But the only thing you worry about really is the Gabatoir, and you think, well, England haven't won here since 1986, so the odds are sort of stacked against them, especially when you look at Australia's record in the pink ball game. But no, they've got a chance. They've definitely got a chance, and I think that they have rationalised it, and I think England think they can do it, and obviously no Mark Wood, which means there's going to have to be a change to the bowling lineup, but I think that's a good thing, because I don't think Wood bowled particularly well in the first test.
Yeah, absolutely. And Will, I think obviously a lot of the build up to the first test, preparation was a big talking point. Were England preparing the right way? We've now had a similar discourse around this pink ball in Canberra, where obviously none of the players who played in Perth went to. What's your view on that? Was that the right thing to do or the wrong thing?
It's a bit like the Lilac Hill situation from the start of the tour, where we probably won't really know for a little while. I know this sounds a bit fence city, but at the time when the Perth test ended, I didn't really understand why a couple of players weren't going. I thought that the likes of Zach Crawley or Joe Root might want to go, might choose to go. They didn't, which is, it was their prerogative. It was the very England way to do it, which was to stick together. But as time has passed, I've actually kind of fallen more into the camp that England chose, which is they chose that because for conditions reasons. I watched a fair bit of the Lions game from Canberra, and it was pretty low key fair, played in absolutely freezing conditions. You sort of some great pictures of Jacob Bethel sat on the bench down there, having got out late last night in absolutely freezing cold with a rug on him and that kind of stuff. Whereas in Brisbane, it's been sweltering hot, kind of as hot as I've ever known it in this part of the world. It's that sort of those conditions where you get off a plane and you're immediately struck by it. I was at England Nets tonight until about 8:30, and it was still really warm at that time. Proper kind of sweaty conditions, very humid here, so I can see why they've done it. I think Canberra, it's actually the same story as Lilac Hill, really. Canberra quite slow and low, the Gabba pretty bouncy. They've added extra net sessions here. They trained on Saturday and Sunday. They're doing again, as Nick says, it's sort of unprecedented situation. We're going to have done 5 net sessions before the game, some players, which amounts to 5 net sessions, then potentially 5 days of cricket. It's sort of creating this sort of 10-day cycle of training and playing. So it might be that a few players sit out one or two sessions over the next couple of days. But yeah, I think I'm with England in the end, but we won't know. Maybe they'll get here and everyone still looks desperately short of cricket, and I'll change my mind again. But it's a tricky one. It wasn't. I do think in the end, I think England were a little bit damned if they do, damned if they don't. Unfortunately,
Good to hear that they are preparing like a professional cricket side. It sounds like, which is good. Just in very basic terms, Will, could you outline what the differences are in a pink ball test versus your traditional red ball?
yeah. So obviously with a 2:00 start time, and at here the sun's been setting about 6:30, which means that we reckon about half the day's play is going to be played with kind of the artificial light taking over, as commentators like to say, and then probably the last 2.5 hours, 3 hours in full darkness. The perception is that in that kind of twilight period, as the sun's setting, which it does quite quickly here, the ball zips around a bit more, and people don't really know whether that's because it's actually swinging more or whether it's because the batsman, his eyes kind of struggling to pick it up a little bit. The pink Kookaburra ball now has a black seam. Early on, it had a kind of white seam. And Joe Root told us yesterday that that makes it a little bit easier to pick up. In the daytime, batting can be really, really easy against the pink ball, but it gets harder in that twilight period. So The other thing to say is that the pink ball, I think, even more than the red kookaburra, goes soft quickly. It's almost like it's a funny, like, I don't know if you've held one, but it's quite hard to describe. It's almost like got like a painty effect, a bit like a white ball, whereas a red ball, a proper traditional red cricket ball, when you hold it, always feels like a really natural product with that leather, which for pink ball just doesn't to me. It feels like a kind of artificial product, almost somewhere between a hockey ball or an Incredible and a proper cricket ball. So yeah, there are different tactical nuances that will come into it. Australia are a far more experienced side in this form of a game. They've played 14 tests using it. They've won 13 of them. But some comfort for England was that one defeat was at the Gabba 2 years ago against the West Indies. But yeah, England have played 7, only won 2 of them. Although they have won the only one they've played under Ben Stokes, so which was in Mount Maunganui in early 2023. Nick was there for that. I wasn't, but they kind of mapped that game out absolutely perfectly and really executed it nicely. So hope all's not lost for England. But Stuart Broad said this week he thinks that the pink ball tests are a bit more of a lottery, and that winning the toss and batting first is really important because you can kind of map the game out as you please, maybe do a canny declaration here or there. But there are little differences. It's not a completely different game, but it's just slightly different.
Obviously, Will's just outlined some of the experience advantage that Australia has in that. I mean, Nick, do you think it is a big advantage for Australia playing these pink ball games? Obviously, Joe Root said yesterday he wasn't sure whether or not they should be part of the Ashes. Is this just, a home advantage thing they're taking there, or?
Well, it's done for practical reasons, actually. It's done because of their broadcast deal. So they have to have 2 test matches that are in peak time, evening time on the East Coast for Sydney and Melbourne. So one of them is Perth because of the time difference, and that's obviously a day game. And so they have to have one day-night game elsewhere in Australia, so Brisbane or Adelaide. In the last tour, actually, here, we played 2 because they had... because England couldn't travel to Perth because it was closed. They played a day-nighter in Hobart instead. It was absolutely freezing in the evening. I'm not a fan of them. I don't think they're great spectacles. Australia are very pleased, very like playing them because they win. They're not a lottery, actually, if you look at the results in recent times. I think they've lost, as Will said, they've lost once in nearly a decade of playing these games. They're not a lottery at all. They're very good at playing them. I'm sure if the results went the other way, that TV deal will probably get rewritten. It is an advantage for Australia, no doubt about it. Game management, as Will said, was important. That Mount Maunganui game, Stokes declared at the right time on day one, early on, had a good go at the Kiwis with the pink ball under the lights, took 3 wickets, it paid off. Now, could he face that situation again? Could we be seeing another sort of funky declaration to try and get ahead of the game? Is that the right thing to do? Is that going to lose them the game ultimately? These are the big decisions that Ben Stokes will have to, if he's in that position, will have to make. And that's why I'm not massively keen on them. I think there's a little bit, artificial. It creates a bit of an artificial game.
Absolutely. And so are we anticipating then, for all those reasons, another quick game, a 3-dayer, relatively low scoring, or do you think there is chance to kind of put the bowlers to the sword at the right times of the day?
I definitely think there are chances to put the bowlers to the sword at the right time of day. I also think that the general feeling here is that it will be a kind of maximum 4-day game. I got a glimpse of the pitch admittedly from the edge of the boundary today, and there's a lot of grass left on it at this stage. It's Monday as I speak, and the game's not till Thursday, but people are saying there's about 12 millimetres of grass on it. I'd expect that to maybe come down to 9 or 10, but that's still a lot of grass. I think we're probably expecting a fairly similar pitch to Perth, but maybe not quite such steepling bounce. A quick wicket where the fast bowlers will have some fun. Australia are considering, I think, leaving out Nathan Lyon. They considered it before Perth. I also think England right now are considering picking a spinner, so that would be a peculiar situation if Australia were to end up leaving out Lyon whilst England picked kind of Shoaib Bashir or Will Jacks. Bashir, who's their project to kind of ape Lyon and be as similar to him as possible. It'd be a bit bizarre if he's playing but Lyon's not. So I expect to put it this way: I expect another game dominated by the seamers. in terms of a wicket taking proportions. But yeah, there will definitely be periods in this game where the pink ball goes really soft and it's difficult to take wickets. I also think the outfield is going to be much quicker than in Perth. That's the slowest outfield I've ever seen. So runs will flow, and the boundaries are smaller here. It's still a big ground. If it was in England, we'd be calling it absolutely vast, but it's nowhere near as big as Perth, which was enormous. So I think runs will flow more quickly in this game generally. But both batting lineups have got some kind of bit of thinking to do, basically.
Well, you've touched on some of the team news there. So we are not expecting Mark Wood to play. So England will be forced to make at least one change. Nick, what would you do with the England 11 if the power was in your hands?
I think I'd bring in Tongue for Wood. Not sure I would. I would have gone with an unchanged team, but Wood's clearly not fit, and there's some serious doubts about how much cricket he'll play going forward in this series. So yeah, that'd be the change. But I think Tongue's a good bowler. He's one of these guys who can bowl an absolute jaffa from nowhere. And if it's grassy and it's going to nip and seam, which it will, because that's how Australia know they're going to beat England, then he's going to be in the game. So that's the one change I would make. I wouldn't pick the spin bowler.
What about you, Will?
I would also pick Tongue. He got some bowling over the weekend. I'm also a fan of him. What I would say is if I were to pick a spinner, I would go Will Jacks, I think. That would be ripping up the kind of all that effort put into Bashir, who is a player who I really like. And I actually would, if this game were in Adelaide, I would be picking, and I had to pick a spinner, I'd be picking Bashir. But because I think it's going to be slightly lower scoring and than it will be in Adelaide, and maybe slightly less spin bowling required, I would add Jacks's batting at number 8. England's tail. It was a game of two halves for England's tail in Perth. They were pretty listless in the first innings, and then actually helped them get up to that score of the lead of 200. Well, it was target of 205, wasn't it? I think, but it has a slightly brittle look to it, even if Atkinson and Cast can bat. So I don't mind the idea of Jacks reinforcing it at number 8. He was quite a busy boy at training over the last couple of days, Jacks. And I just wonder whether if they go with spin, it might be him.
That would make sense, I guess. It would be a slightly tricky one for Shoaib Bashir to take. You would think, but I can totally see the logic behind that. We've spoken a little bit about how the pink ball might change the bowling element. Do we think England's batting approach will change at all because of the pink ball, or do you think it's the same approach they would take to a normal game, Nick?
Well, I think that's the ultimate challenge for this team, is it? Can they change their approach? Can they adapt to the situation? Play a bit like they did last summer when they were much better at least early on in that series against India, of judging their moments. They know what Australia are going to do for most of their players. They're going to hang it out wide. They're going to tempt them to take on the drive, and they're going to hit some of them with a short ball, Brook and Smith in particular. And they took it on last time. Are they going to do that the same? Are they going to do that here? Are they going to change their instincts? That's going to be the challenge, and I suspect they probably won't, and they'll carry on playing the way they play, and think that they can pull it off this time, probably with a bounce and not being as dramatic as Perth. And as Will says, the outfield giving them a little bit more value for their shots. They've got more chance of success than they had last week. But the difference probably this week is that the ball will swing for Starc, and it didn't swing in Perth. He will make it swing here with the pink ball, and that's another challenge.
Oh yeah, and all I was going to say actually is I think by not going to play that game in Canberra, I do wonder if the batsmen might have heaped a little bit more pressure on themselves, just because they have not opted to prepare in that way. Some of them have not played much against this. If England play slightly almost foolishly against the pink ball swinging around, and it looks like they are unsure what to do, I think that is going to go down pretty badly with the English cricketing public. I mean, do you think there's anything in that, Will?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Alistair Cook said after that first test that actually going, and I think this is quite an un-England mindset, but it might have been playing on some of these players' minds that if they'd gone to Canberra, if Zach Crawley had strode down to Canberra on the back of a pair in Perth, and he'd not got many again, then the noise would have risen that way. I think that's a slightly sort of meek way of looking at things, and not really the way England look at it. there's unbelievable amounts of pressure on someone like Zach Crawley going into this game. It was a pair, but it was also a pretty grim pair, wasn't it? And not one that that many England fans would be desperately surprised about, given the way his the statistical trends in his career. The worry about someone like Crawley is that he could get into a bit of a rut against Mitchell Starc, just as he did it against Matt Henry last year in New Zealand, when he got out in all 6 innings and averaged less than 10. But yeah, I think I've been I haven't been surprised by the scale of a reaction to England's defeat, but I will say that I haven't really known a reaction like it in my time covering the team. And I'm not saying it's not fair enough at all. The Ashes mattered, so I love that the people care so much about the Ashes. And it was a proper hope that kills you week in Perth, wasn't it, or weekend in Perth, where English fans allow themselves to believe they were going to win. I was the same. I allowed myself to believe that they were in a really good chance of winning. What would have been the first time I've seen England win in a Test match in Australia. So that was the problem. That's led to the scale of reaction. The pressure is unbelievable now. England learned the hard way in 2023 that you can't go 2-0 down in the Ashes, especially when you don't hold them. So they've got to win this week. There's no choice. We know this game's not going to be drawn. There's some tropical weather about in Queensland, but it's never going to be enough to make this game a draw, I wouldn't think, given the way the two sides set up. So they've backed themselves into a corner where they need to win.
You've slightly undermined your Mystic McPherson credentials there, but nevertheless, I'm going to ask you: is Zach Crawley going to score any runs in this Test?
I reckon he will score more than a run in this Test. But yeah, I do. If England win the toss and bat, which the experts feel is the only way to go in this game, and him and Ben Duckett are walking out together. And Mitchell Starc, in the form of his life, he's added this wobble ball. He's famous for his work with the pink ball. The pressure is just absolutely unbelievable on him. And we'll learn a lot about Zach Crawley this week, I think. He's kind of quietly been going about his business. When I left the ground tonight at sort of 8:30, he was doing sprinting laps of the ground, and Mark Wood, who's looking pretty sorry for himself, was keeping time and clocking him. So he's a serious trainer, Crawley. He's maybe slightly more serious about the game than he gets credit for. But this is a huge week in his career, because if he has another two failures, if he got a pair again, it's not unthinkable. If he got a pair again and England lost, then they probably would have to make a change, despite all the investment they've made in him. So absolutely huge week for him.
And there's a lot of pressure again on Joe Root as well after that first game. Nick, you've written a piece about Root today. Where do you feel like he is at right now?
I think Joe's in a difficult place. We spoke to him yesterday, and all the years I've been talking to Joe Root in press conferences and all that sort of stuff, he looked tense. Didn't look his normal self. I'm worried about Joe on this tour, and he is carrying a bit of a weight around on him. He's not in good nick. He had a poor series in New Zealand. And he hasn't had a lot of cricket. He hasn't had felt bat on ball. And we know how keen he is to do that. We know that his strength is his weakness in Australia, on Australian pitches. And he's unlucky that in some ways that his career has coincided with harder pitches to bat on in Australia. A Kookaburra ball that keeps its hardness a bit longer than the old one used to. And 3 great seamers. I know only one of them's playing in this game, but the backup's not too bad either. So I do think that Joe is in a difficult place at the moment, and he really needs to get a score in the first innings here, and it'd be nice for him to come in when England have got a couple more on the board than they did at Perth, and that's where he needs Zach Crawley to play his role as well. So Root isn't exposed necessarily to the new ball when it's doing a lot. I mean, it's just going to always be that debate, isn't it? If he doesn't score 100 here, is it going to be an asterisk next to his statistics? Well, it won't matter actually if England win the Ashes. I mean, that's the most important thing to Joe. And he has this unenviable record of being the batsman who's played the most innings here without scoring 100, and the guy who's lost the most Test matches without winning one. So if both of those go in the same game, then England have got a shout in this series.
Yeah, I think if Root can get off to one of those kind of classic 20 or 30 odd balls type starts, there'll be a collective sigh across England, because you just feel like if he gets a start, he might go on, but he did look pretty ropey. The other,
You just wonder whether he's overthinking it. That's the other thing. Is he spending too much time thinking about his batting? That is what Joe does. He loves batting. He does think about it an awful lot. And is that, is he not? Does it not feel natural for him at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I just wanted to quickly touch on Ben Stokes' batting as well. And I don't know if this is me having a short memory, but I think Stokes' captaincy is very strong. His bowling's been fantastic recently. I'm not sure I've ever felt less confident in his batting right now. I just not quite. I know he scored runs a couple of tests ago, but consistently he's not scoring. I don't know. Will, is his batting a concern, or do you think he will come good at some point on this tour?
I think he will come good at some point on this tour, just like he did against India. So it took him 4 tests to find that excellent 100 at Old Trafford. He started that series slowly. I remember writing a piece at Edgbaston about how Jamie Smith, who was looking so good at that point, should bat above Stokes, and maybe I still believe that. I'm not sure, but Stokes is in this unique, bizarre position where he spends so little time actually playing cricket now. The only matches he plays these days are Test matches for England. So his last match before the Perth Test was the one at Old Trafford. He obviously missed the Oval. He before that he had another long injury layoff. So he kind of gears himself up. He beasts himself in the gym, on the treadmill, in the net, bowling especially, to get fit to be an all-rounder in Test cricket. But his batting is a touch and a feel thing. Not many players can go play so rarely and then look in great touch immediately. So that's the battle he's got at the moment. It's a tricky one for him.
It does look a little bit like Starc might have his number as well. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, actually, Stokes is one of these players who has got various kind of players over the years who've really liked bowling at him, and actually the match up against Australia that's always really worried England with Ben Stokes is Nathan Lyon. I know Stokes has had some great moments against Lyon, but he's got him out a lot. Suddenly, Starc is getting him out all the time. Which is massively problematic for England. Starc, as I said before, that he's added the wobble seam in the last couple of years, and he's just an unbelievable bowler now. It's a joy to watch. But he has got Stokes' number. There were 3 of the top 6 who were dismissed by Starc in both innings at Perth. Crawley, Root, and Stokes, all of whom we've spoken about here. And Starc will be licking his lips, won't he? That kind of the left arm over to the left-hander, he seems to really enjoy with Stokes. And that gap between bat and pad that he showed at Perth was pretty worrying as well, I thought.
Hi, Stuart Broad here. I really hope you're enjoying the Telegraph's Cricket Podcast, proudly sponsored by Laithwaite's Wine. Laithwaite's has an incredible range of wines, from big, bold reds to crisp, refreshing whites and everything in between. Perfect for any occasion, delivered straight to your door. And now my very own range, Beyond the Wicket, is available at Laithwaite's too. It's 6 great wines, 2 whites, 2 reds, a rosé and an English sparkling. Each inspired by my memories touring the world playing this incredible sport. Laithwaite stop at nothing to find the best wines from around the world. So, get ready for a great delivery, on and off the pitch. Visit laithwaites.co.uk and raise a glass to great cricket and great wine.
We're just going to quickly get into the Australian side of things because, as mentioned, it's not actually all straightforward for them despite winning. Firstly, there'll be no Josh Hazlewood in this second test. We also think there's no Pat Cummins, who wasn't named in the squad, although is travelling and has been seen practising with the pink ball. A lot of the reason why the first test was such a big opportunity for England was the fact those 2 were unavailable. Nick, does it feel like this is another big opportunity without those 2 there, or do you feel like it's less consequential this time around?
I think that's always an opportunity without those 2, because if England England were on the cusp of really putting them under some serious pressure in Perth. They took on Scott Boland in the first innings, gave him away back in the second innings. When, to be honest, I think he was fighting for his career at that point. And Doggett was, I think, looked a better bowler actually on debut. So yes, it is a huge opportunity. That's not changed. When Cummins, if fully fit, and Hazelwood, if fully fit, are back in the team, there's going to be a much harder Australian side to beat. Will they pick Nathan Lyon? That's going to be an interesting call. He didn't like being left out in the Caribbean, but he's been a bit of a passenger in Australia, actually, for the last couple of years, and certainly in the pink ball games. And the other huge story over here, and the one that's taking up a lot of the space in the papers and everything, is whether they pick Khawaja. Now, I think if they're ruthless, they won't pick him. He looks like, to me, like he's gone against pace. But I've got a feeling they might stick with him, and that plays into England's hands as well. The thing with Australia, actually, the most important thing is that whilst the media here have gone haywire and think that this is going to be a humiliation and a 5-0, I just suspect the Australian team recognise what happened in Perth and have probably not got too far ahead of themselves. If they have, that's to England's benefit.
I mean, England will be absolutely delighted if Khawaja's playing again, surely. After given his recent form, given how good Head was, given the middle order reinforcements they could pick, if you were in their camp, Will, would you be looking to keep Head as an opener and bring in someone in the middle order?
Well, I like this idea that's been floated that Head is this kind of second innings bruiser up top, and that the quite flexible batting orders. I actually, this probably goes against the grain a little bit. I would stick with Khawaja because I think they have been battling to find an opening partner for him, and if they drop him now, if he's fit on his home ground and they drop him, that is it for a guy who's played 85 tests. You can't go back to him for Adelaide in that situation to play on in a simpler batting game, which is what's expected at Adelaide. I would stick with him, but I would keep that Head trump card up my sleeve. The thing about moving Travis Head up to open is that he can't then bat number 5, and he's really very, in normal times, he's really very good at number 5. He could be used cleverly, whether in small chases or medium-sized chases like at Perth, or if you're ahead of a game, kind of they used to call the David Warner junk time 100, didn't they, when he'd get a third innings 100. Head could be brilliant at that, and he could also, maybe if you're behind in the third innings, he could blast you back in front. So all of those, but I would keep him at number 5 actually, for now, as in on the scorecard and in the first innings when you're kind of setting up the game. I think a more conventional approach, and then drag it back. If I were Australia, I think I probably would go unchanged for this game. Just stick with it. There's a bit of Cummins chat floating around still. He had a good bowl again today at their nets, and like a really good battle with Marnus Labuschagne in the nets with the pink ball. Yeah, and he was bowling at Steve Smith in Sydney on Friday. There's a sense that they could pull a rabbit from a hat. Just because they didn't name him in the squad initially doesn't mean he can't play. It's not binding. So yeah, let's watch this space. I suspect he won't, and I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if they're unchanged. But I would actually stick with Khawaja, even though I think he really is very, very close to the end, and possibly on his last leg. So I think they're 1-0 up, and they've got the position of luxury not to have to make kind of calls like that could disrupt the way your team thinks about each other, and kind of a culture in the dressing room. They're a pretty conservative bunch, this Australia team, and I suspect that's what they'll do.
Do you think, Nick, then potentially this kind of loyalty to Lyon and Khawaja could end up being, maybe Australia's undoing is too strong, but might give England a bit more of a way in? Do you think if they were being really ruthless, they might look to make a couple of changes in those areas?
Yeah, it would. England, like Will said, England would much rather see Khawaja probably in the team than not in the team. All I can see him really achieving is blunting England for a while and holding them up, but not for very long, given the potency of this pace attack, which is something that he hasn't faced against an England team, certainly not in Australia, and better than the one he faced in England a couple of years ago. No, I think that would be a great bonus for England if he's playing. Also, easy mobile in the field as well, so that's another small factor too. And England will fancy him, but we talk about selectors being ruthless. I mean, England probably are the same. They probably give guys a game or two. Some would say a series or two too many. So
60 or two, so too many.
well,
in some cases.
exactly for some people, for Crawley and for Pope. So yeah, again, as I said before the first as we said before the first test, England know their team pretty much for this game. The third bowler, well, they change those all the time. Australia have got some big decisions to make over their 11.
They definitely do. And all right, we will round things off by answering some of your questions as usual. But first, the minute monologue is back. And it is not just any minute monologue, it's a McPherson minute monologue. So, Will, I'll chuck it over to you.
I'm going to go into bat for Joe Root in my minute monologue. He said yesterday, Joe doesn't offer too many opinions, but yesterday he said that the Ashes don't need pink ball tests. I totally agree. I'm actually someone who doesn't mind innovation in Test cricket. I don't mind 4-day tests when they're appropriate. I don't mind pink ball tests when they're appropriate. But in the Ashes, we just don't need it. Tickets sell out brilliantly. The nation's gripped. Both nations are gripped. The action doesn't need any embellishment. It's like the history, the cachet, all of that kind of stuff. England versus Australia does not need this. The product, the cricketing product, it might look nice on TV. It might make nice photographs that win awards, but I don't think the product is actually as good. It's not as authentic. It's not as natural. That kind of, leather on willow. It doesn't have the same feel. The pink ball sounds different. It looks different. It also changes the spectator experience, and often people filter out the gates in the evening. Adelaide don't want this test match to be pink ball. Brisbane have been lumped with it. I don't think we should have it in the Ashes.
Strong stuff from Will. I mean, hard to disagree. I mean, who knows? They might come up with 5 ball overs next. All right. Well, we'll get into some questions now. Starting with the first one from Richard Prue, who says, "I know it can't happen under this management, but would you not say that picking a semi-blocker like a Sibley or a Hamid instead of Crawley balances the team and gives someone to occupy the crease and rest the bowlers?" Nick, thoughts on that one?
Both had their crack at Test cricket, not good enough, I'm afraid. And I mean, Hamid and Bayu has improved a little bit, but you've got to hurt the opposition as well. You can't just soak up balls. There's more to it than that. Otherwise, Australia should be picking Usman Khawaja for the next 2 series.
Are there any blockers in English cricket that are good enough?
That's a very good question. I'm not so sure that anyone who's a blocker in county cricket is really on the radar. I would say the next one on that England are looking at is Ben McKinney. He looks like he has a good game for international cricket rather than county cricket. A bit like you would say the Vaughans and Trescothics of this world. We always go back to those two. But I just think the changes this team have made are probably set for quite a while.
Okay, and the next one comes from Asical, who says, "Do you think the rapid deterioration of the pink ball could suit England's Bazball approach?"
I definitely think it could. I think England need to be patient in this game with the bat. I think up top, that early, that Crawley Duckett period is going to be so important. If they can get through that first 15, 20 overs, not necessarily those two, but 1, maybe even 2 down, I think there'll be a real opportunity against a soft ball for England to get after Australia. That's not, in the first test, they barely batted for more than 30 overs in either innings. So they've got a lot of improving to do on that. I thought Crawley just wasn't around long enough to kind of have a sense of how he was batting. I thought Pope and Duckett both worked pretty hard in Perth, and in those ways they were pretty frustrating. Duckett was less at fault than Pope probably, but they both got out when set in both innings. They were thinking hard about their game plans, and they were kind of gritting it out a bit. So there's going to need to be a bit more of that from the top 3, I think, in this game if they're to make the big runs that are on offer. But all the reports are, both whether it's from a game in Canberra or from the net sessions here, the pink ball is going soft extremely quickly, and the bowlers could get frustrated with that. And it could be that for Australia, Nathan Lyon could be whiling away a fair bit, or Cameron Green bowling to a bouncer field or whatever. They could be going to some pretty defensive plans. So yeah, England just need to kind of just get grip their way through much better than they did in that first test. I know they don't think that's natural to them, but sometimes you've got to do things that you don't like.
Well, given Will's opposition to the pink ball test, I think I know what his answer will be for this question, so I'll come to you, Nick. Adam Bateman asks, will the format for the men's Ashes ever match that of the women's, i.e. a points-based system across formats?
I hope not. I mean, what's the only reason that works in... Well, I'm not sure it does work, but the reason it's used in women's cricket is because they play multiple formats across a series, whereas this is 5 test matches. So no, they did try it once in English cricket. I remember, was it a summer against Sri Lanka, Will?
Andrew Strauss's Super Series.
But it didn't take off, and I can't see it ever being used again in men's cricket anyway.
All right, and the last question comes from Dark Glasses, who asks, is this the longest break ever between test match in a series?
Probably, I can't think. I've certainly not covered a series, I don't think, where I've had this long. Will probably say it was India 2 years ago, but this feels like probably
no,
was England less than 2 days.
Yeah, it's England's fault that the gap was so long. I do find the arrangement of this series bizarre, to be honest, with the long gaps between the first 3 and then basically 3 back-to-back tests over Christmas. To try and cheer myself up, I'm reading Richard Whitehead's excellent book on the 54-55 Ashes tour, and there were some pretty long gaps in that between the tests in that tour. I think they went home in March or something. But
they did play cricket though. That was the difference.
Exactly.
They were playing cricket. Which is what England.
They were playing tour matches 2 days out from a test match and stuff like that. So it was a pretty different time. But no, I've never known anything like this. It's absolutely crazy how long it's been. We're desperate for the action to get back underway and can't wait.
I think Mark Wood had the right idea. Actually, we should have driven from Perth to Brisbane and feel that would have been a good way, and done a feature on outback cricket on the way.
Maybe next time. Okay, that is all for today. Thanks to Nick and Will as always. Please keep an eye out for all their work on the ground throughout the week ahead of the second test on the Telegraph Sport website. A big thanks to everyone for downloading the podcast and to everyone who sent in a question too. We will be back after the second test. Until then, goodbye.
Hi, Stuart Broad here. I'm here with Laithwaite's Wine, the proud sponsor of the Telegraph's Cricket Podcast. Check out my Beyond the Wicket range of wines at Laithwaite's, inspired by my memories travelling the world playing this incredible sport we love. Visit laithwaites.co.uk for more details.
If you're enjoying our journalism, why not sign up to From the Editor, our free email newsletter? Start your day with the latest news and opinion, plus our bite-sized puzzles. Scan the QR code to sign up free today.